This is Flint, and you're listening to G.I Joe Chronicles.
The LONGBOX CRUSADE presents
G.I Joe Chronicles, The Devil's Due Years. Welcome to G.I Joe Chronicles, The Devil's Due Years. I'm one of your commanders, Pat Sampson, codename DJ Kristatos, and joining me, as always, is my battle buddy in this operation, Gerald Ulbrich, codename Death Probe.
That's a prescription for danger.
It says it right there in the script. It's right there in the script.
That Gerald again, I can tell. Oh, at ease, DJ Kristatos. To all the green shirts tuning in for this podcast, I want to welcome you all back to Fort Longbox. We appreciate you tuning in, talk some of these post-2000 G.I. Joe comics with us as we chronicle our way through the criminally underrated Devil's Due run. On this episode of G.I. Joe Chronicles, DJ Kristatos and I are going to rotate in another special ops guest on the show for this episode. Our special ops guest is Mr. Jim Meal, codename Jim the Joe Junkie. Welcome to Fort Longbox, Jim.
How we doing? Thanks for having me.
No problem, man. For those of you who are listening, which is everybody, because we're not putting this out live and we're releasing the video, Jim is in a location he calls the Pit, and he is completely surrounded. Pat and I can see by his G.I. Joe vehicles collection. It is impressive.
It is, definitely. I want to go over there and just touch everything and just, ooh, I like.
That's just one wall. I've got 3 others.
Jim, here's a question that we have to ask, and Jason would be sad if we didn't ask this. The Weasel Skull would want to know, how many Sky Strikers do you have?
I actually don't have any Sky Strikers. I know. That is one vehicle that I have not obtained yet.
Okay.
I haven't had, the price hasn't been right yet.
They, the Hasbro Labs, I think those Sky Strikers
are starting to ship.
Starting to ship, which means I'm going to get one because I backed that.
Oh, you did?
I did.
Yeah? Oh. I didn't back the Hit Tank or the Sky Striker because of space.
I understand. I understand. Well, cool. We're happy to have Jim here. Jim's a Crusaders Club member and a devout listener. So those are some of the best guests to have on, people with the passion. So we get to ask Jim now the first episode question. And as most of you guys know who are regular listeners, you know he'll be on next episode as well because we record 2 back-to-back. So next episode, we'll get to hear what his 3 favorite vehicles are. But for this episode, Jim, who are your favorite 3 Joes or Cobras? You can mix them. Doesn't have to be all Joe. Doesn't have to be all Cobra. And then when we come back from that, we'll find out a little bit more about his origin story with G.I. Joe. But let's jump into the figures. Joe's, Cobras, top 3. Who do you love?
My top 3 Joe Cobra is Falcon from 1987. Green Beret. Rock and Roll version 2 specifically. He's the one with the 2 big Gatling guns.
Oh, sure.
The tan version.
Okay, with the hat.
With a hat, 1988 or 89.
Yep.
And then Destro version 2, the gold head.
Gold.
Yep.
Yeah.
Those are my 3 favorites.
Those are bold and wonderful choices.
Yeah.
I like that. I like Falcon, huh? Lieutenant Falcon.
Yep.
Give me the shotgun.
Yeah,
shotgun, the antenna that everybody lost.
That's right. I may have mentioned on the show before. I know I've at least told Pat. I don't know if I did it on recording, but I actually cut his shotgun down.
I've heard that story on the show.
Okay, so I did mention it on the show. I regret it now, but I cut it down to make it a sawed.
I obtained one that somebody had painted with brown. They painted it brown. Just brown, yeah. I'm like, all right.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Must have been playing in the desert or something with it.
I don't know, but
just brown.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Let's find out now. Jim, how did you come to G.I. Joe? What's your G.I. Joe origin story? Most people either come via the toy, like I did, or via the cartoon, or via the comic book. Is it one of those 3, or is it something weird? What do you got?
The toys and the cartoon were probably the simultaneous around the same time, 83, 84.
Okay.
When I started getting into it. And then, of course, collected toys. I came into the comics about 88, 89. that was the first time I bought a Joe comic, and then after it was all over from there.
Do you remember what issue you bought?
It was issue number. It was the one with Python Patrol, issue 88.
Oh,
I didn't actually buy it. My mom bought it, and 2 special missions, 21 and 22. We were taking a trip down to Florida, and she bought those comics for us, me and my brother, to read. And I don't know how many times I read those 3 issues on that trip. And I actually, on the way back, I bought a couple more Joe comics at a flea market on the way back.
Good,
so
good.
So yeah, yep. She don't know what she knows now what she created. 30 years later, I got a shed full of toys, and so
Yeah.
I can relate. Oh, that's great. Awesome. Well, we're happy to have you here, Jim the Joe Junkie, and I think I'll go back to DJ Kristatos to get our intelligence report rolling.
For this mission, we will be covering G.I. Joe number 38. Publisher was Devil's Due. Cover date of January 2005. Writer was Brandon Jerwa. Penciler is Emiliano Santalucia. Colorist is Brent R. Smith. And letterer goes to Dreamer Design. Cover art for this is by Tim Seeley, Andrew Papoy, and Jeremy Roberts. And speaking about the cover, let's go on over to Death Probe to take us through the cover description.
Here we go.
Take cover!
This cover is simple. It's a zoomed-in shot on a red background focusing on the face of Cobra Commander as he removes his iconic mirrored mask. A bold cover blurb simply states, "Unmasked." Back to you, Pat.
So let's find out what you guys think of this cover. And we will start with Jim the Joe Junkie. What's your thoughts on this cover?
this isn't one of my favorites, to be quite honest with you. There's not a lot of action, but it definitely does draw your attention straight to the center of that cover and draws you in. I'm just not a fan of this type of cover. That's just me.
Yeah, understood. Yeah, everybody's got their.
But it's very well done. Very well done.
Jared, what's your thoughts?
I think I like it a little more than Jim. I agree with him that it's not very action packed, but it really reminds me of the Marvel run and the Unmasked cover there. You know, when we were kids, all we wanted to know was, you know, what does Destro look like? And what does Snake Eyes look like? And what does Cobra Commander look like? And so it kind of made me feel that way again. And then, you know, as you learn the complexities of the story and who's behind the mask, it makes it even more sense. But he's right. It's a low action cover, but I think it's a high intrigue cover. And then just artistically, I like it. I like the red lighting. I think that was a good effect. I think they did a great job of it. I really like those eyes. And I think that's what Jim was saying, how that the eyes just pull you in. So yeah, artistically, I think it's really good. And I think it's intriguing. What about you, Pat?
I'm going to agree with you there. It makes me kind of want to read to find out what's going on. And it did remind me of those older unmasking or the mask, you know, where they get the face shot and we're trying to figure out who it is. You know, that one where Snake Eyes is pulling off his mask like that. Interesting. And what really struck me too is, you said it as well, is the color choices in here. This really made it pop, I think, and having that red gives you that sense of danger or just, I don't know, I want to say angriness, but you know what I mean. It gives you that fear factor or things like that. So really well done, I think, on the color choices for this as well. All right. Well, now that we've kind of got our thoughts done on what we think of this, you know, it is a simple cover, very well drawn, but let's go ahead and find out how many flag points we want to rate this one. And we rate the cover here on a scale of 1 to 10 flag points. 1 meaning you didn't like it at all, and 10 meaning it's perfect and you should make a recruiting poster out of it. We'll go back to Jim.
I'm going to give it a 7. Again, it's not my favorite, but it is very, as Jared said, intriguing and definitely draws your attention. I say a 7.
All right, good start. Jared, what's your thoughts?
No, I'm going to bump that up to an 8. I think this is a solid 8 cover. It's an 8. It's very good. And I think, you know, we talked about this before, your level of fandom. I'm trying to remember, we had somebody on before. It might have been Weasel Gall, who was a big Cobra Commander fan.
Yeah,
I think it was him. So he might like it to the tune of a 9 or maybe even a 10 because it's very Cobra Commander oriented. But I like it at an 8. What about you?
I am there at an 8 as well. Again, it's the color choices on this one that really, I think, bumped it up for me on this one. simple cover, very well drawn. I mean, it's just, those eyes too. The one that you can see and the other one just kind of peeking underneath that shield there. And you're like, oh, really? Are we going to see Cobra Commander and what's going on? Because if you've been reading the story as well too, you really want to know what's happening with him. Did they really get him to unmask himself or what? So with that, I'm going with an 8 as well. All right, well, with the cover out of the way, let's go back to Death Probe for the story synopsis in our mission brief.
You got it, my friend. And on G.I Joe Chronicles, we like to mix things up a bit. So I'm going to have DJ Kristatos pull that randomizer to determine the synopsis point of view. Will I tell it from Joe's point of view or Cobra's point of view? Kristatos, pull that lever.
It is Joe.
All right, then here we go.
Look in the eyes of a hero and see the sacrifice within. There's no way out for the hero. He only lives to fight again. A hero sends all not for fortune or fame, but death freedom, because we all just wanted the same. Real heroes don't give up.
All right, after the prison break last issue, Duke, Scarlet, Snake Eyes, and Storm Shadow are on the run from the U.S. government with a little help from our old friends Cutter, Dana, and Claymore. They are now on their own as a rogue Joe element. Meanwhile, even though Stalker, Lady J, and Lifeline put up a fight, the Dreadnoks have busted Cobra Commander out of jail with the help of Zanya, who they planted as a mole the entire time. Speaking of moles, turns out the Cobra Commander was never captured. It was Zartan the entire time, and Cobra Commander has been out in the world posing as Zartan. As an aside, something odd is happening in Brazil, where a small Joe team discovers a Cobra outpost led by Big Boa, but when they check out the outpost, every member of Cobra, including Big Boa, has been slaughtered.
Now back to G.I. Joe.
Okay, now it's time for the highs and lows of this issue. We will start with our guest in round one. Jim, the Joe Junkie, do you have a high or a low? What do you want to talk about in round one?
Well, I think we got to talk about Cobra Commander Zartan trading places. I mean, I've read this issue a couple times. This time I said, okay, where did they actually change spots? When was it? And I went back. The closest I could find was issue 31. I don't know if you guys went back and looked or not.
No, we let you do that.
Oh, thanks. Thanks. Appreciate that.
Yeah, I got the note saying Jim was
a
looking
great
at that. Yeah.
Best I could find was issue 31 when they met on Cobra Island. But I'm like, okay, when did that happen? Because that means that Hawk and Zartan fought, not Hawk and Cobra Commander. So it goes quite a ways back to what that was. You know, a lot happened with Zartan as Cobra Commander. I thought that was a huge reveal.
You know, that is interesting because I guess that means Hawk is now on a wheelchair because of Zartan.
Yes.
Ooh.
Man.
If you go back and look at some of the other previous issues too, you can pick up little hints of Cobra Commander as Zartan acting a little bit different than what Zartan would. And just
we talked about that.
Yeah. little things that.
Remember, Pat, you and I were talking about when Xandar showed up, like,
yeah,
we were like, didn't you guys like fight to the death or something?
Yeah.
At some point?
Yeah.
Huh.
The way he was talking with Dr. Mindbender about stuff, just kind of pulling information. So,
yeah.
And Pat, you've been asking about Zartan and his full face mask get up.
Yeah, I remember,
we thought it was because he was ill.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now we know why.
Yep.
Because around issue where we're fighting Serpentor, he didn't have that mask, did he? I don't think.
You know, I'd have to go back.
I don't think he did.
I'm going to take Jim's word for it. He's been going back and doing the homework.
I didn't go that far back, but I don't remember when I read it. He was healed from it, but
yeah, that's what I thought. I thought, you know, he got the nano to help him heal, and it was all taken care of. And then, this was a very well laid out plan on this, you know, for this to come through and hit you like that. And it took me a little bit when I was reading it to like go back and go, wait a minute, are they changing clothes or is he just putting on a different one? But I'm like, wait a minute, that's not, you know, the clothes he had on. He was actually, you know, changing out, and I'm like, oh man.
Yeah, that's going to be my only complaint on this, Pat. Is I think the execution of that was way too subtle. Like they needed to make a bigger deal out of that story wise and art wise. Like I had to go back over those panels, like you're saying several times ago. Now, does what I think happen here?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I wish
too.
they had done it a lot more bold because I think it was done way too subtly.
I've read these, like I said, a couple times, and I actually went to yojo.com to make sure I was understanding it correctly. Their synopsis to make sure, okay, yeah, that did happen. So
I just wish that they had done more with that reveal.
Yeah.
Like at some point he should have said, "Ha ha ha, suckers! I've been Cobra Commander the whole time." But then they did it real subtle, and you have to really follow who's putting on what shirt and who's and yeah, that was my only complaint was the execution of that really great reveal.
Yeah. The artist did all the heavy lifting on that one, on that series.
Yes.
On that.
And we had it's a guest artist, it's a first time artist. So Santa Lucia had a lot to do and probably not a lot of time to do it, which probably, even if he had to do over again, he probably would have made the reveal a little more bold. But speaking of the artist, I think that Santa Lucia did a great job.
It's one of my notes too, as well as the
It's your turn to talk, Pat, so roll with it.
All right. Well, then let's go ahead and go into it. Looking at the art, I really enjoyed this one, as I thought the artwork was good. The coloring also helps it along the way too. And there's some good action that's happening. I think you could understand the story that's being laid out here in front of you. It was just that one part that I wasn't really sure on. And maybe it could be some of the word bubbles too were covering it up. I think on that particular page, if you go back and look at it, where he's like either putting on the shirt, taking off the shirt, whatever he's doing, there's a big word bubble there that's kind of covering that up. So it made it a little bit even harder for me to understand what was happening.
Yeah, that is a writer's error. The writer needs to understand their panel count. The writer needs to understand their word count, how much real estate's going to be taken by the letterer. I mean, basically you have this amazing reveal that is essentially done in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 panels crammed in there with dialogue. Yeah. This one really needed an extra page at that moment.
Yeah, or just a nice splash page of something like that. And you can still keep them in the shadow. So, I mean, we really did get to see the commander. You just saw his, kind of shadowy face, but still very well done in the artwork, I would say.
San Lucia didn't miss a beat. Like Seeley's been turning in A+ work, and then clearly they had to bring him in. I noticed they missed a month in their production schedule right around this time. I think it went from November to January or something like that. There was a month skipped on the cover date. So I'm like, they're playing catch up. And I think the San Lucia guy did an amazing job. I would like to highlight probably my favorite page is when Stalker electrocutes Xandar. It's really high energy, no pun intended. It really looks great. San Lucia does action really well. There's a lot of movement and a lot of energy. There's when Lady J is fighting Zanya, who, Pat, kudos to us, because as soon as we saw that girl in the previous issue, we were like, that's got to be either Baroness, Zorana, or Zanya. It's got to be one of those three.
Yeah, I was like, I knew something was up with that Dr. Edmonds. And like, something's not right with
it.
Like
right out of the cartoon. Anytime you see a female character you've never seen before, you're like,
that's what I was going to say.
But I'm like, that vibe, they gonna fight? They didn't get him into a swimsuit yet or something. I was waiting.
Wait, what?
On the cartoon, they always had Baroness Wood running around in a swimsuit.
Okay. Anyways, let's bring it back to Jim. Jim, what else you got? What you got here for round 2?
Something that you may have touched on in previous issues and shows, but Devils always did a good job bringing in some of the lesser known obscure characters. This issue had a few, they used them different aspects. Lifeline Cutter was brought in as just a place to go and rest or hide. Rampart, Hardball, Big Boa, who unfortunately was only limp in a chair for one panel.
They used him like in the earlier. Remember that, Pat? Or was they brought him in to like torture somebody? I think it
was when Rock and Roll Mutt, Bazooka were going to met in that bar.
Yeah,
in that
Able to use those obscure characters in ways that, because you could tell it was written by a fan, not just a writer, And then of course they had Glenda, who was an Argentinian character or figure during this time. So I mean, they're digging deep for some of these.
They're just winking and nodding at the collectors left and right here.
Yep. So they always did a good job at that.
I wholeheartedly agree. I think it's a great point, Jim. It was neat to see those, especially I have a special place in my heart. I've always liked Hardball. I always thought he was cool. I always thought he kind of got screwed a little bit with the movie because like he came out with Jinx, who was in the movie, and Tunnel Rat, who was in the movie. And then there was like this basketball, the big lob. I was like, what? Who the hell is that? Why is it not Hardball?
They've traded one sports guy for another.
They did. I always liked his outfit. I don't know. It was just in that magical collecting era of figures for me. Again, I've mentioned 1,000 shows. I came in through the figures, so I relate almost all of this to figure, and I just really liked this figure. But it was cool to see him. And interesting. And Pat, as we move the round over to you, I want to lead you into something here. I think it was last issue, possibly 2 issues ago. We had the random murder of Action Man. Right.
Yes, we
did. And now we have like the random murder of Big Bo. I'm wondering if these two things are connected.
I don't know. You know what? That's what I have in my notes. Is like, what's happening in Brazil?
Jim's nodding with a sly smile on his face, so he probably knows more than we do about what's coming.
So I'm wondering what's happening to the stuff going on. Is it Coil yet that around, or is there something?
I'm wondering if this isn't the seeds for the big bads that end up finishing this run.
Yeah.
It is. It's when this run was going, the big bads that are coming were not really that popular in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just say that.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that for our listeners who are reading along with us. I kind of know where he's going with this. I have a vague memory because I know we're getting near the end of the run. So I kind of know who the big bads are that closed the run out. Although I do need to freshen on the details. But I'm starting to think, the Action Man's death, Big Bo is death. Something's going on.
They're starting to build towards that ending.
Interesting that they several issues out there planting seeds.
Yeah, I wonder, did they know the ending was coming soon? I guess I don't know that, what was happening, or was that just, another story arc they were trying to get through and building the seeds to. So we
should definitely see if we can't get Josh back on the show to kind of tell us, why did you stop it? Because the Devil's Dues Joe run didn't stop here. They did America's Elite after this, which was also awesome. Mm-hmm. I would just wonder if I got to feel like Hasbro had a hand in it. Like, we want you to wrap this up, end it, and then they pitched them a new idea, and they went, okay, you can do something. Yeah. Maybe the license had to end at this certain time. Mm-hmm. Who knows? Anyway, Pat, it's your turn.
Well, I want to talk about some character moments that I thought were really good. Storm Shadow and Duke working together. Very cool moments. Two action guys just having fun. Is like, I'll bet you $20 you can make that. Like, come on, man. He can make that.
Again, I'm going to talk during your turn, Pat, but I got to say that Devil's Due did more for Duke than Marvel ever did. In Marvel, he was just sort of that goody two-shoes field leader, and I never really liked him because he replaced Stalker as the field leader, and I always liked Stalker better than Duke. But Devil's Due, when they took advantage of that 7-year hiatus and said, basically, he's been doing Black Ops. He's not as squeaky clean as you think he is. Really elevated the character a little bit.
Yeah.
Jim, you have thoughts on that? And we'll go back to you, Pat.
On my notes, as one of mine was the interaction between Duke and Storm Shadow with I bet you can't make that. And that's one of mine. They better save the money for bail. That was joking around while they're in the middle of a battle. It was
neat to see Storm Shadow show off marksmanship, because I think of him more as a ninja than anything, and then Snake Eyes as a commando. But
sure,
I had to remember. Oh yeah, Tommy's a soldier. He was in Vietnam.
Yeah, he was in there with them.
So yeah, he knows what he's doing. Knows his way around a weapon. I don't know if anybody I know could shoot thin cables like that.
While the car's going, who knows how fast.
Yeah. In fact, I saw a really good series on Netflix. I want to say it was called Hollywood Weapons or something like that. And it was an actual Navy SEAL guy who would take famous Hollywood movie moments and see if they're really possible to do. And he did like one on it was like Mythbusters, but with big action movies. He did one on Good, Bad, and the Ugly. It would get hung. Someone would get hung, and then Clint Eastwood would shoot the rope, right? And they were like, "Is that possible?" Spoiler alert: not really.
Yeah.
Even when you hit the rope, because the way ropes are designed, it
would just. I would think it would
split it.
Knock it or something.
Anyways, we've gotten far afield here. Pat, it was your turn.
Going back to character moments, I love seeing Cutter too. I was like, "Oh, Cutter, that's pretty cool." And Jim had brought up all these extra guys that come into play again and that we get to see. So I thought that was very well done. Just the kind of, sprinkling of character moments in this one as well. And, also on the Cobra side too.
I'll keep that ball rolling and give some props to Lady J, who fought a good fight as the position was getting overwhelmed by Dreadnoks, and then had the good sense to pull a John McClane and climb into the ventilation ducts. I like the little joint of her little feet going to fight another day. So I thought those were very, very cool. And of course, we're getting more and more interested in what's going on with General Ray. We got a little bit more from him.
Yeah.
I'm certain we'll talk more about him in the next issue.
What do you think of Stalker's outfit? He's got that like shieldy helmet, and I'm like,
yeah, the shield mask was an odd choice. I feel like it made it harder on the artist than it needed to. It's not really something he does. I was just happy to see Stalker in action, so I guess
yeah, but I was like, is that Stalker? Is that not Stalker? They say his name's Stalker, but it didn't look like Stalker.
I'm not real versed in this time frame for action figures, but I almost wonder if that was his current action figure.
Yeah.
And that's why they had to put him in there like that.
I wasn't sure either, so
I don't so actually, because I'm big on the action figures, and I don't think there's one that comes with that mask.
Like I said, the 2000 to 2005, I'm not real up on those action figures, but
I have almost all of them.
Okay,
I don't remember that, but this would not be the first time, Jim. You might be onto something that Hasbro might have designed one and then said, "Okay, we'll use it in the comics," and then pulled back from the design.
Yeah.
We've seen things in the comics that have changed.
Could be,
because they were early designs. So that is a definite possibility. But Stalker was being awesome, and that made me.
Yeah, it was cool what he was doing. I'm just like, man, that outfit wasn't doing it for me.
All right. That is the end of our official rounds. But if we have some notes left that we need to get off our chest, we can do that. And I will start with our guest, Jim. Do you have anything you really want to discuss for this issue before we move on?
No, I think we hit all my points, actually.
Pat, I know you got more on your note card, your index card over there.
I just have one more that I want to give a thought out to is what Scarlett said when she confronted Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow kind of out there. And you got to give it to Storm Shadow for trying to make amends with Snake Eyes. And then, Scarlett saying, hey, you guys are going back and forth. And I'm like, yeah, we've seen this back and forth. She's like, either you guys just say you're going to be the way it's going to be. And if it changes, then, that happens. Then call it quits. But you got to love each other. The bros got to love each other.
Yeah. I like a happy and harmonious relationship between Snake Eyes and Tommy.
Yeah.
But I also love nothing more than to watch them fight each other.
Yeah.
So that is the difficulty.
Yeah. But, just like you and Jason fight all the time, but in the end, you still walk away, brothers.
I just want to go on record to say that Jason and I have never been in a physical altercation in our lives. Never once.
I can't say the same thing about my brothers.
You had an older brother, younger brother, Jim?
I'm the oldest, and I've got two younger.
Okay, how far apart?
My next youngest is a year and a half. So we were pretty close in age.
Okay.
And
that's why. Because Jason and I are 5 years apart. I have to remind everybody that, like, a 15-year-old beating on a 10-year-old is ridiculous. So that's why we never really fought.
we were close enough that we there was several times when Mom and Dad came home, we were cleaning the living room up because of wrestling that was going on in the house.
Fisticuffs and brouhahas.
Yes.
But see, you came together, teamwork, get that house clean before things got done.
You've never seen us clean so fast.
One other thing is, what's happening with Destro? What is
he was on top of the world, wasn't he?
Yeah. He's on top of the world. He's got some stuff going on and coming about, but I'm like, where are we going with this one? And we see in the next issue, but good cliffhanging on with Destro.
Yeah, just very little Destro in this one. He basically just has Wraith kind of keeping an eye on things, right? So.
Yeah, we find out where Wraith actually goes into and gets some information, which I thought was interesting as well, too. I'm like, oh, what is he doing there? And then, oh, okay, now I get it.
More to come. More. Okay, with all that chatter out of the way, let's hand it back to DJ Kristatos for the IG's report on the combat readiness of this issue.
And for those of you who don't speak military, that means we're going to score this issue story on the same 1 to 10 flag point scale we used earlier. So, Jim, the Joe Junkie, on a scale of 1 to 10 flag points, how many are you willing to send in for this issue?
I'm giving this one a 9 because of all the stuff we've talked about. They've wrapped up some old storylines. They're ramping up new ones. It really kept me intrigued. It was to the point where I got about 2/3 of the way through, and I'm like, is this a double-sized issue? There was so much stuff going on.
It was.
The cover didn't grab me, but the storyline is really good. I really liked it.
Very good. I would definitely agree with you that when I was reading this story, I'm like, wow, this does seem like it's a little extended issue going on here, and did enjoy it. So it wasn't like I was, going, wow, this thing's too long. It was really meaty on what was happening. And I am going to give it, was at an 8, but I think I'm going to be with Jim at a 9 with us talking about this and understanding now that some of the stuff that was being laid down for what's to come more. So I am super more intrigued to find out what's going on. Jarrett, where are you at?
I'm trying to remember the lyrics to that rap song. So what you want, 9? Remember 9, the rap song? I'll put it in.
I do not.
I'll put in a limited amount of audio so we don't get fired. Oh, that's the song I would use for everybody. 9. The song that only I remember. It's all right. The listeners have heard it. 9. It's all 9s. Okay. Yep. It's all 9s.
All 9s around.
9s.
Very good. All right. Well, now that we got the scoring out of the way, let's go ahead and give out some awards. Now is the time where we hand out awards for either a Silver Star Medal or Silver Snake for either gallantry in action or sneaky snakitude. This is where we each get to award the character in this issue who went above and beyond the call of duty or was very super sneaky snakiness. Jim, who is your Silver Star, or do you have a Silver Snake?
I'm actually going to give my Silver Star to Storm Shadow for coming in when the Duke and Snake Eyes needed help, putting aside his grudges, all the struggles he's been going through. Because you remember, after he fought with Snake Eyes
he just
in the early
away.
20s, he walked away. He said, I'm done for a while. He picked up the weapons and came and helped Snake Eyes when he needed them. So put all that aside to help. So giving my Silver Star to Storm Shadow.
Not a bad choice. Jared, who do you choose?
I'm going to give a Silver Snake to Cobra Commander.
Oh, you took mine.
For a classic Cobra Commander. Yeah, I tricked you all type of thing, So I don't know why my Cobra Commander sounds like a 30s gangster, but he does. And I love it.
Yeah, I agree with you too. My Silver Snake goes to Cobra Commander in this one because I was duped. Like Jim, I was thinking, okay, where did they switch in this thing? How far back did this go? And then I was thinking, oh yeah, I remember too asking why Zartan was wearing that mask. I wanted to know. And of course.
And I kept being like, oh, he's sick. He's on the mend. Little did I know. I honestly didn't remember. So I got duped. I was duped.
Yep. Okay. So they duped me. So you got to get a sneaky dude with that. I mean, all right. Well, with that out of the way, let's hand it back to Jarrett for his segment called Death Pro's Toy Chest.
It's here, the G.I Joe collection, each sold separately. G.I Joe from Hasbro.
Thank you, Pat. In this particular version of Death Probe's Toy Chest, I will take something or someone featured from this issue and give you a brief toy history on it. For this issue, I've selected Lifeline. He is a rescue trooper. His name is Edwin Steen. He is from Seattle, Washington. His specialty is medic and just medic. His description is a red jumpsuit with white highlights and white boots. It's got the word rescue down one of his pant legs. His accessories included a silver handgun, a silver backpack, a white medical case, and a black air mask. He was first released in 1986 as part of Series 5 and discontinued in 1988. There are currently 9 versions of Lifeline out there. And here's the weird part. Even though I mentioned earlier that his name is Edwin Steen, for some reason, the 2002 and 2004 versions, his name is Greg Scott. Can't explain it. Then he went back to being Edwin Steen again after that. Oh. So What? I don't know. Let's do it around the room on the Lifeline, the action figure. Pat, did you have him?
I did not have a Lifeline.
Suck. Jim.
I did not have one back in the day. I have one now, but not back when 86.
You don't suck. Only Pat does.
Well, maybe someone could throw me a Lifeline.
Oh,
in more ways than one,
I'm going to be honest with you. I feel like I'm in the same boat as Jim. I'm not so sure I had this when I was a kid. I have him now. I think they made a Tiger Force version of Lifeline, which was pretty awesome too.
I think so too.
Yeah. By the way, I think I might have him too. But no, I think I acquired him later on. But it's a cool looking figure.
Yeah, I was going to say, definitely very sharp looking figure with that red stands out, and being a medic that's carrying a gun.
Yeah, I always thought it was where he came with a gun. I was like, oh man, the medic's packing some heat.
Yeah, very different from when we saw Doc earlier on. So now you get
always liked Doc. So you got Doc and Lifeline now working together.
I always feel like from the comics and some of the cartoon, Lifeline was more of the action-y guy. Doc was the elder statesman that he would just kind of sit around and help people at what he could do, but Lifeline's the action.
The Lifeline from the comics is a lot different than the one from the cartoon. In the cartoon, he was a pacifist. There was a little bit of that in the comics, but he still was not afraid to help and shoot when he needed to.
Yeah, mix it up a little.
There was not a hint of that in the cartoon. He would go out of his way not to help.
This Lifeline will shoot you, but then it'll patch you up.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that has been this episode's Death Probe's Toy Chest. Tune in next episode to find out who or what we will talk about. Hint, it's over Jim's left shoulder.
Next up is our feedback segment called Combat Comms.
Call it G.I Joe! Go get Breaker! He can do it!
As always, we want to start off Combat Comms with a roster of our battle-hardened Crusaders Club veterans. These are the fine folks who have joined our Crusaders Club. They enjoy early access to special Longbox video episodes, free raffle giveaways, voting on show programming, and so much more. So these are the folks reaping the benefits and giving some much appreciated support to the show.
And Helica Wolf. Ow!
Oberon Elvis.
Blast It or Stash It.
Braxton Underwood.
Captain Entropy.
Clinton Robinson.
Dave Collins, codename Battlewagon.
Ezra Gallo.
Gary Viola.
Gene Hendricks.
Gerald Green.
Jason Keene.
Jason Lady.
Jeremy L.
Jim Jarman.
Jim Jarman. I hope you like Jim Jarman too. Jim Meal. Meow, 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 meow.
Joe Thomas.
John Watson.
Josh Strickland.
Candace Ward.
Kathy Bright.
Mark Ross, a.k.a. Cluck Trent.
Maxwell Traver.
Miranda W.
P.D. Devins, a.k.a. Prophet Director Devins.
Paul Hicks.
Rick. Jeff and Rick present.
Rob Morgan.
Ryan Daly.
Samantha Maney.
Sean Urbanski.
Spidey 67.
Spreadsheet.
Steve Cronin.
Tim Price.
Tony Pennington.
And the Toronto Cop.
If we missed anyone on our list, we do apologize. Please keep in mind that we record these episodes like you want your steak done well in advance of release. So if you are a recent addition, we should be adding you soon. But still, don't worry about it. Just let us know that we missed you by sending an email at contact@longboxcrusade.com and we'll get it all straightened out. So you might be asking yourself, how do I become a Crusaders Club member? It's very simple. You just got to head on over to patreon.com and search for Longbox Crusade. For as little as $1 a month, you'll get access to the amazing world of the Crusaders Club member. How much access, Jared? How much would you think?
80% tops.
Really? You think that much?
60%.
No, Jared. It's all the access.
Oh, that's too much to take.
Exactly. You see, your mind can't handle that to have all that access. So that's why I want to invite you to come and check it out. Now let's get into messages from our platoon of loyal listeners we have waiting for us on our breakers ComSat.
Communications officer. Code name breaker.
These are from episode 35 that feature Jared, me, and Jason. Jared, you want to read the first one?
Sure. It's from our good friend of the show, G.I. Gary. And Gary says, Orsted discussing Destro's future infant's headgear is the content that I crave. Hashtag listening, hashtag Yo Joe. So glad that Orsted can bring happiness into your life. I think he's going to continue to do so.
Yeah. Orsted's awesome.
He is. He's got the right words for like the right time.
Mm-hmm.
That's Orsted, man. Love that guy.
That's all he talks is love.
Yeah.
That's
he'd probably stop by later on and give his thoughts on this issue.
We could. Yeah. We'll see. But, he comes and goes when he wants because he's just...
He's a free spirit.
Yep. So we leave the doors unlocked around here. Just he comes and he goes. I'll take the next one from Tim Price. And Tim says, why is Deadshot fighting Snake Eyes? And it was the Wraith cover.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That cover was the face-to-face Wraith and Snake Eyes. It did look like Deadshot.
It did. It did.
And then we've got Kathy Bright, who says, I'm listening to this episode. And then she posted a picture of someone just completely relaxed in the purple fog. She's definitely an Orsted reference. Mm-hmm. And so Rob Morgan asked, are y'all doing AMSR now? And I officially titled it Orsted's AMSR, Authentic, Mystical, Serene, Relaxing. Yeah. I mean, hey guys, it's Orsted. And I'm just glad you guys are getting some peace out of my appearances on this show.
I think it really helps
me really happy.
Yeah. I think I'm glad I can bring that balance back to, the battle.
Yeah, all this violence, you need to wind down, man. You should probably listen to the show with nice, cold spring water from, mountains of Colorado, man. Mm-hmm. Or maybe from Fiji. Yeah.
Fiji water. Yeah.
Fiji water. Anyway, back to the show. You know what? Speaking of Orsted, Pat.
Yeah.
I'm certain people could call in with questions for Orsted if they wanted to. How would they do that?
Well, Jared, I'm glad you asked. If you wanted to send in a question for Orsted or for even us to answer, you could do that by leaving us a voice message at 707-532-5269. That number again is 707-532-LBOX.
Pick up the phone, man. Or don't. Whatever.
Just let your mind call us mentally, man, and just reach out and just,
if you put your feelings in the universe, I'll find them.
Yeah, you give out the love is just going to get to where it needs. And you know what? In return, you'll get the love too.
Wise words from Orsted. Don't go too far, Orsted, because we do have a send-in question, and I think it is for Orsted, so let's give that a listen.
Hi, this is longtime listener Auburn Elvis, and I have a question I would like to ask Orsted. I have this friend who really, really likes Spider-Man, and my friend has these other friends who talk about Spider-Man all the time, and for the most part it's great, but there are some times when they're a little hard on Spider-Man, and it really, really bothers my friend. So what advice do you have for my friends when those other friends are not being very complimentary to Spider-Man? Thanks, Orsted. Yo, Joe.
Yeah, man. I hear what your friend is saying, but it's okay to have some differences, It's like some people like Spider-Man, some people don't,
Yeah, man. You gotta have yin and yang.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you have just yin. And what's that? That's like a white dot. Yang, like a black dot. You need the two together, man. I think your friends all still love Spider-Man. If you're hard on somebody, you don't like them. You just want them better,
Yeah, exactly. You want to, find the good in everything that you can around you and just, appreciate that the conversations these people are having. Yeah. And they're talking about your friend, your good friend's friend.
More importantly, these guys are having this conversation and providing it to you. So, like, you should increase your Patreon amount, man.
Yeah, you should support them in any way you can. You know, it's
not all about the money, but it's about the money.
Just think of the love you could spread and the joy you would bring to them just by increasing your amount.
No, it's not really about the money, man. I was making jokes, but like, everybody's got different opinions, and that's okay, man. And I think the fact that you love Spider-Man unconditionally is super cool, man. And I think everybody's got love for Spider-Man. Maybe not as much as you, but that's awesome. It's awesome.
But you know, I want to know why you do. You know, you talk about the Spider-Man, but you know, there's some good people out there. You know, why don't you talk about some Joe? Or even, you know, even some Cobra, or, you know, you talk about my bro, you know, Destro. You know, he's a good guy. He dresses well.
He can't stick to a wall, and he can't spin a web of any size, but he's still pretty good to me, man.
Yeah. He's got some good points, you know. He's an all right guy.
Yeah. Hopefully this has been helpful. Probably not, though.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hope you got all the answers you needed there for Elvis.
There's got to be a jump in there somewhere.
Yeah, we need more people to call in and let us be morons at 707-532-5269. But hey, luckily that's going to bring us to mission complete status for this episode of G.I Joe Chronicles: The Devil's Due Years. If you'd like to hear more from us in the realm of comic books, action films, vintage TV, movies, serials, and more, check out the entire Longbox Crusade Network. DJ Kristatos, where can they find that?
Well, Jared, I'm glad you asked. You can find it on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and most of all the podcatchers out there, or go to www.longboxcrusade.com. We are also on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, all at Longbox Crusade. Back to you, Jared.
Awesome. If you'd like to chat with us personally online, we can be found at... Back to you, Pat.
Well, Jared, I'm glad you asked. I can be reached on the Twitter at Kristatos01. Jared?
I am at Yard Sale Artist, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. It's all at Yard Sale Artist. Jim, if people want to chat with you and ask you about your experience on the show, maybe you could lie and say it was good, where can people find you?
You can find me on Facebook, Jim Miel, JIMMIEL. That's it.
He's keeping it simple, man. I love it.
Jim, Jim keeps it real, man. He's just like, I don't need to be all over these socials. I just need to, just come see me on the Book of Face. You know?
People will find me, man.
Yeah.
People will find me. And I gotta say, sorry to interrupt, Orsted. I gotta say, Jim is a great dude on Facebook talking G.I. Joe, man. If you just want to get in that passion, he's a great guy to chat Joe with. Thanks for joining us for this episode of G.I. Joe Chronicles: The Devil's Due Years. We will see you on the battlefield next episode when we cover issue number 39, The Union of the Snake. It's part 4.
Four.
Until then, platoon, fall out.
Yo, Joe.
The music themes for this show are done by musical genius Joe November. Please check out his SoundCloud at Josephline99. That's Josephline99. You will not regret it.